Doctors said she would never walk again. Money, hospitals, and the best treatments in America all failed. But when fate led a billionaire's daughter to a small garage, a humble mechanic built a miracle that changed her life forever. Like, share, and subscribe, and tell us where you're watching from. Now let's get started. In a quiet, tree-lined suburb outside Detroit, Michigan, mornings arrived softly, but for Emily Carter, they always felt heavy. At 19, she had already learned the weight of stillness. Once a bright athlete who loved running along Lake St. Clair, she now sat in a wheelchair by her bedroom window, watching life move without her. The accident had happened 3 years earlier on an icy highway, a single moment that shattered her spine and rewrote her future. Since then, the world spoke to her in whispers of sympathy and careful pauses, as if movement itself had become something fragile and forbidden. Emily's mother, Laura Carter, was a name known across America. A self-made billionaire in the technology sector, she was used to solving problems with speed and precision. When Emily was injured, Laura did what powerful people do. She fought back with resources. The best hospitals in Boston, Chicago, and San Francisco opened their doors. World-famous surgeons reviewed scans. Experimental therapies were attempted. Each appointment began with hope and ended with gentle disappointment. The doctors were kind, honest, and painfully consistent. Emily's condition, they said, was permanent. Months turned into years, and the Carter mansion grew quieter. Emily learned to smile when visitors came, learned to thank doctors for trying, learned how to hide the small ache that lived behind her ribs. Laura, however, never stopped searching. At night, she scrolled through medical journals and obscure research papers, chasing possibilities that most had already abandoned. Wealth could buy time, access, and expertise, but it couldn't guarantee miracles. Slowly, Emily waited in the back seat, staring at the rain-soaked pavement. Through the open garage door, she noticed a man kneeling beside an engine, his hands black with grease, his focus absolute, as if the world existed only in bolts and motion. That man was Jack Miller, a 32-year-old mechanic who had grown up fixing broken things because his family couldn't afford replacements. Cars, bikes, lawnmowers. If it moved, Jack understood it. He believed. Machines told stories through resistance and balance. When he stepped outside to speak with the driver, his eyes briefly met Emily's. He noticed the wheelchair, the braces, the careful posture doctors taught disabled patients to protect what remained. But unlike others, Jack didn't look away quickly. He studied, not out of rudeness, but curiosity. Inside the shop, while waiting for parts, Jack found himself glancing toward the car again. He thought about alignment, about how systems failed when weight shifted incorrectly. Emily's legs, he realized, weren't simply weak. They were unsupported in the wrong ways. The thought unsettled him. He had no medical training, no degrees on the wall, but he had spent his life correcting imbalance. He shook his head, reminding himself it wasn't his place. Still, something about the quiet girl in the wheelchair followed him back to his workbench. When the car was finally repaired, Laura stepped out to thank Jack personally. Their conversation was brief and polite, separated by social worlds that rarely overlapped. Yet before they left, Jack hesitated. His voice was careful, almost unsure. He said he didn't mean to offend, but asked whether Emily's condition involved balance and load-bearing limitations. Laura stiffened, years of false hope making her cautious. She answered politely but firmly. Doctors had already tried everything. Jack nodded, embarrassed, and said nothing more. As the car pulled away, Emily looked back through the rear window at the small garage growing distant. For reasons she couldn't explain, she felt a strange flicker of warmth. That man hadn't looked at her with pity or fear. He had looked at her like a puzzle, something challenging but not impossible. It was a feeling she hadn't felt since before the accident. She didn't